water you turn into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you, none like you, no. Into the darkness you shine, out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you, none like you. Our God is greater. Sing that, church. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Water you turned into wine. Come on. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you, none like you. Yeah. Into the darkness you shine, out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you, none like you. Our God is greater. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God, our God is greater. Sing that. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand again? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand again? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand again? What could stand again? Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God, our God. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God, yeah. Amen, church. Nothing can separate. Even if I ran away, your love never fails. I know I I still make mistakes, yeah. You have new mercy for me every day. Your love never fails. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes, no. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the ocean rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Yes, you do. Your love never fails. The wind is strong. The wind is strong and the water's deep. I'm not alone here in these open seas. Your love never fails. Oh, the chasm is far too wide. I never thought I'd reach the other side. Your love never fails. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, joy comes in the morning. And when the ocean rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know you love me. Your love never fails. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. Sing it out. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. Sing it again. You make all things work together for my good. Oh, you make all things work together for my good. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, joy comes in the morning. And when the ocean rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know you love me. Yes, you do. Your love never fails. Your love never fails. No, no. Woo. Amen, church. Man, good to see y'all this morning. Glad you guys are here worshiping with us. Glad you guys are attending online as well. Glad that you're watching wherever it is you're watching, whatever time you're watching. I always assume that people are just watching it live, but I know that's mostly not true. People watch it at all times. So good to see you guys whenever it is that you're watching this. Maybe if you're watching at home and you got your kids with you and you may be interested in what's going on in the back with Coast Kids, you can go check that out right now at home with your kids on our church website, coastlifechurch.net, or our Facebook page. And you can see what Trent and Lindsay do back there with our kids. I think they'll really enjoy it. If you want to give that a shot, it's really awesome. Also, if you're at home, we would love to communicate with you, to interact with you through the worldwide interweb thing that you're watching on. You can put it in the comment box or on the chat bar. Just tell us, hey, where you're watching from. We'd just love to hear from you this morning. We know that you're watching anyway, because we have these cool algorithms back there that tell us exactly who's watching and where they're watching it from. So if you don't talk to us now, then I know you're just being disobedient. So I'm kidding. Do whatever you want. And then in the building, man, we're also glad that you're here too. I'm super glad that you're worshiping with us. If you want to, right now, we're going to give you an opportunity to kind of walk around, say hello to people, maybe introduce yourself to somebody that you don't know, and then we'll come out together and sing some more songs together. Great to see you guys. Yeah, well, I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard tender whispers of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers only you can provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. 'Cause you are perfect in all of your ways. Sing that, church. Perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. To us, we serve a perfect God. You are perfect in all of your ways. Perfect in all of your ways. Perfect in all of your ways to us. You're perfect in all your ways. Sing that. You are perfect in all of your ways. Perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to oh, a love so undeniable, I can't hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable, I can't hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love, love, love. You're a good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And give hope. You restore, yes you do, every heart that is broken. Sing of His greatness, church. Great are you, Lord. Sing it out again. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs. We pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. Yes, we do, yeah. You give life, you are love. You bring light to the darkness. You give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Oh, great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. Yes, you are. It's your breath in our lungs. We pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. Sing it out. We pour out our praise to you only. All the earth, yeah, all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, my old bones are gonna sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. Let every voice sing it this morning. Sing, great are you, Lord. All the earth, sing it again. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. You are perfect in all of your ways. Perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Sing that out again. You're perfect. You are perfect in all of your ways. Perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. It's your breath in our lungs. Sing it out. It's your breath in our lungs. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Jesus, we're grateful this morning that, God, that our identity, God, is not wrapped up in, as believers anyway, Jesus, our identity is not made up of what our job is, God, or where we even go to church, Jesus, or who our family, God. Our identity is all wrapped up, God, in who you are and what you've done for us, God, and how you have given us, God, a fullness of life in you, Jesus, and we're grateful for that this morning. Thank you that one day, because of that reality, God, because of our existence is made up of you, God, we're going to be made perfect, God, and in eternity with you one day, Jesus. We're thankful this morning that we get to celebrate that together. God, thank you for this church. Thank you for this wonderful body of believers, God, that you ordained to put together from, I say the beginning of time, God, but there was no beginning for you, Jesus. You were just always there. So we're grateful that this has just been something that was always going to happen, Coast Life Church, forever and ever. This was just going to be, and we're grateful that you have us here for a reason this morning, God. You have us together for a season, Jesus, so that we can just make it tough, God, for folks to get to Hill from right here on the Gulf Coast and from wherever it is that we're watching from, God, and from wherever it is that we spend our days. Jesus, we ask that you just bless us in that endeavor, God, as we try to reach a lost world for you. God, thank you for our pastor, God. We're grateful that his focus is, God, on edifying your church, God, through your message. We ask that you continue to bless him with, God, with the ability to lead, God, and with the words that you would have us to hear every Sunday. Be with him and his family as they continue to ministry, God, and continue to be with us, God, as we believe, God, and listen, God, and as we serve where we're at. We ask that you just, God, give us grace and peace, God, and understanding of, God, what it is you want us to do, and then help us to do it, God, to your will. God, thank you for this day that you've given us. Thank you again that you knew this day was going to happen, God. You have a plan for it. We ask that you just have your will in everything that happens here in our services today. Thank you that you've already obviously moved in our midst, and we ask that you continue to do that again. In your son's name we pray.
Hey guys, welcome to Coast Life Church. We are so excited that you chose to spend part of your weekend here with us. If this is your first time attending, please take a moment to click the Connect tab. Fill it out to your comfort level, and then this week, one of our pastors will connect with you through an email. Thank you for being faithful in your giving of tithes and offerings. There are several ways for you to give. Click the Give tab through the Coast Life Church app, or simply text the word GIVE to 228-200-0907.
Recycled that from last year because it was just too good. Like little Jonah's growing up too fast. But I had a funny thought this morning. I'll say this to his parents who are sitting right over there. I think we should use this clip every year, and when he's 18, make it again in the same costume. Oh man, that'd be so good. Trunk or Treat is coming up. We would love it if you would sign up to host a trunk, to decorate one for our Trunk or Treat event. And of course, we need a lot of candy. Some candy started coming in actually last week, which we really appreciate.
So I'll just mention it again. If you see some candy and you think, oh yeah, trunk or treat at church, let me grab a bag. Please do, and we will certainly put it to good use, putting it right back into your children so that they are all amped up for all that happens after Halloween, which is going to be on a Sunday this year. And so that works out just right for us to have trunk or treat on that day. Just a couple other things I want to mention. We had life group emphasis last weekend, the week before, but just because we're not necessarily emphasizing life groups every week doesn't mean you can't sign up for one. You can find out about all of our life groups and sign up for any of the life groups through our app, the Coast Life Church app. It's at your app store, wherever that comes from. You know how that works. Or just go to the website, coastlifechurch.net. Then there is go to, what's the drop down? Under? Connect. Oh yeah, Connect, life groups. Then you can see all the life groups there. There's a form that you can connect with the life group leader if you just fill it out a little bit. It's not a ton of information, and then they will get back with you. So life groups are going all the time. You don't have to be there at the beginning to join it. You can join a life group anytime, and we sort of do it on a sort of a semester basis. These will probably carry all the way into next summer. If you're a life group leader and you didn't know that, surprise, they're going to carry on. They're going to be great, and there's certainly room for you. And a part of being a church that is endeavoring with God's help to have a maximum impact, a couple of weeks ago, actually over the last several weeks, some people have asked me if they could have something that they could take with them to introduce people to our church, to invite them, and just to give them something, some little card. And we did that before, a long time ago, and those cards ran out, and we never replaced them, and I just kind of let it go, and then some people started asking for them again, so we've made some new ones. I'm holding one in my hand. I realize it's small, but here's what it looks like on the front, the Coast Life Church logo, and on the back, it says, please be our guest Sundays at 9 o'clock or 10:30 in person and online. It has the church website on there and the address, some other information. But the key thing it has is a QR code, which everybody is all about now. If someone scans this QR code, it takes them to the app. But I think after a conversation, we're going to switch that so that it goes to the website. Yes, we're going to switch it so that it goes to the website. So that anyone who is interested in CLC, someone that you talk to and you want to invite them, they can find out everything they might want to know, especially through the website. Or the app. If they get the app, ultimately that takes them to the website too. But I just want to make it a little bit easier for all of us to have a maximum impact. And a part of the way is just with these little cards. It's not a big deal. You can put them in your wallet, in your pocket, in your purse. And if you're talking to somebody about church, I know that it happens. And if it does, they're like, well, where do you go to church? You can go, well, pshaw! And you can put it, and you can make that sound when you do it, because nothing would be more helpful than that. Hand them the card and let them know, this is my church. We'd be so happy to have you, because we would be so happy to have them from wherever they are, whatever they're going through, and to have an impact on our community. All right, this morning we are indeed going to continue talking about having a maximum impact, and we're going to stay focused on Gideon for one more Sunday. Because this week is when everything comes together, like big deal comes together in Gideon's life. We were introduced to him as sort of a quiet, shy, scared little guy hiding down in a wine press, trying to prepare for himself a little bit of wheat so that he could have a little bit of bread to eat for one day. And the Son of God, the angel of the Lord, who we would later come to know as Jesus, appears to him and says, Gideon, you mighty man of valor, while he's out on his hands and knees, terrified that someone's going to find him and steal his little bit of wheat so that he can't make his biscuit. Jesus sees in him something that he doesn't see. He sees in him valor and value and authority and an ability to lead that he did not see. And then he gives him a task. The Son of God, gives Gideon a task, which is to rid his community of idols. And so Gideon does it. You'll remember that. He tore down the one idol of Baal. He burned the other idol, the Asherah pole, and sacrificed to the Lord. He was completely obedient. And so as he was obedient, God promoted him. And you remember, he went from being the scared little, essentially nobody in the community, to the general of the army. God says, through you, I'm going to use you, Gideon, to relieve the nation of Israel from their oppressors, to deliver them from their oppressors. That's where we left off last week. The army has all come together from all around the nation of Israel. People are now following Gideon that had wanted him dead because he had destroyed their idols. And the story is really picking up steam and speed, and you feel like you know where it's going to go. Like, okay, I can see what's happening here. There's a big army, and there's going to be this big battle. And then we find ourselves today realizing that God doesn't always do things the way we think he's going to do them, but he always does what he says he is going to do. And sometimes he does things in ways that are shocking and unnerving to us because they depend, or it requires us to depend on our faith, on our trust, and that's what God wants, for us to trust him, to depend on him. And so today we're going to be reading from Judges chapter 7. If you'd like to turn there, there's Bibles are all around the room. If you're attending from at home or somewhere out in the world, please read along if you have a Bible. If you're in a place where you don't have a Bible, let us know, and we will get you one. Wherever in the world you are, we can get you a Bible. We would be so happy to do that so that you can read along with us as we make our way today through Judges. While you're on your way to Judges chapter 7, let me just give us a baseline that's actually from Exodus 23:22. This was God talking about his son, who again we would come to know as Jesus, but Jesus was eternal. He didn't have a beginning. He is eternal. And so this is God talking about his son, who we would come to know as Jesus. But at this time, this is thousands of years ago, he was talking to the nation of Israel and ultimately, though, talking to us through time. This is what God said. If you carefully obey his, for us, that's Jesus. We know that's Jesus. If you carefully obey his voice and do all that I say, that's God talking about himself. If you obey the voice of my son and do all that I say, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. I want that. I want to know that God is an enemy of my enemies and that he is an adversary to those that are adversarial in my life. And you want that too, because we will all in our lives encounter opposition. We will encounter natural opposition. We will encounter opposition from people that are around us, people that will want to engage us, people that are unrighteous, that don't like what we're doing because we are endeavoring to be righteous with God's help. And so we will face different sorts of opposition. God has promised that if we obey him, that is the key, if we obey. In fact, everybody say, if I obey. If we are obedient, God has promised that he would be an enemy to any enemy of mine, to any enemy of yours. That doesn't just mean people that we don't necessarily like. Like, not everybody that you don't like isn't your enemy, right? There are personality differences and stuff like that. Let's not be ridiculous. When he's talking about enemy, he's talking about an evil desire in an individual or even something spiritual, an evil desire to harm or even destroy you. That is an enemy, not a person that wants your job. I mean, come on. Your job is going to last as long as you do, and then we're going to go to heaven, and you're not going to remember your job. He's not talking about that. He's talking about spiritual, adversarial opposition to the good that God has planned to do in and through you. And so whenever that pops up in my life or in your life, and it does, sometimes it pops up and we don't even really know what's going on. There are battles going on around you all the time, spiritually, supernatural battles. And God is just pushing back darkness and demons and evil. I mean, it just never stops. And he's not exhausted by it. It doesn't make him tired. So whenever it pops up, I want to know that God is not just on my side, but he is fighting my battle, that he has stepped in front of me, that Jesus is in fact behind me saying, don't touch my boy, and that God is in front of me destroying the enemy that is standing against me. Because if it stands against me, if it stands against you and you are his kid, then it's standing against him. And he doesn't like that, obviously. So that's why his promise all the way back in Exodus is, if you will be obedient, do the things you should do and don't do the things that you shouldn't do. It's as simple as that. If we will be obedient, then we can anticipate his promise that he will be an enemy to our enemies and an adversary to our adversaries. And it is with that baseline that we now turn to Judges chapter 7. And we have to ask ourselves a question right away as we're looking again at Gideon's life. Who is going to receive the glory? Because we know something good's going to happen, but who's going to get the credit for it? Chapter 7, verse 1 of Judges said, Then Jerubbaal, remember that's the name they started to call Gideon because he had torn down the idol of Baal, and the people wanted to cause him harm because he had torn down their idol. And Gideon's dad said, No. If Baal is really a god, if he's really powerful, then let Baal deal with my son. And all the people agreed with that. They're like, yeah, you're right. Our big bad god Baal can handle Gideon. And so since Gideon had contended with Baal, had argued with him, had picked a fight with him, then they said, from now on, we're going to call Gideon Jerubbaal, which means argues with, fights with, or contends with Baal. Baal was no real god. There never was any contention. the real God had called Gideon to do what he wanted to do. And so Gideon was ultimately obviously going to be victorious. But they kept calling him Jerubbaal. After all that was over with, they kept saying, he's the guy that fought with Baal and won. Early on, they were like, he's the guy that's going to fight with Baal and lose. But he was victorious because there is no God called Baal. He's just a stick, a rock, a carving. So this is Gideon. So then Jerubbaal, Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the spring of Harod. And the camp of Midian was north of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. The Bible gives us those details so that we can verify that they're true. This is all not just biblical history, it's world history. You can find writing about this in ancient history in just the historical records of the nation of Israel. Things that didn't make it into Scripture are all part of the historical narrative. It's all true. This isn't make-believe, it's a true story. And the camp of Midian was north of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. The Lord said to Gideon, the people with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into your hand, lest Israel boast over me, saying, my own hand has saved me. Gideon had had gathered an army, God had sent him, in fact, an army of about 32,000 men. The army that they were opposing was in excess of something like 80,000 or more than that. There's some discussion about the number. It was massive. So they must have already, some of them, Gideon probably, I would imagine, must have been feeling a little bit like, woo, they're a big army, and we have a big army too, but they're still a lot bigger. He has them all together. They're preparing to go into battle. They've all amassed in this one area in Israel where you can still go there now. They're even called the same thing. Thousands of years later, the places are still named the same places. He's got his army together, and then God speaks to Gideon. Gideon had a lot of conversations with God. I've wondered what that would have been like. But God speaks to him and says, Gideon, your army's too big. 32,000 is too many. If you guys go to battle with the Midianites and this army that is coming against Israel, as they do every year, it's possible that some of your guys, some people in Israel, and maybe even you yourself, could think that you won this victory. It won't be as obvious as I want it to be that I did it, not you. This is what God says to Gideon. I feel like this is what God sometimes says to us too. I know that I have experienced this in my own life where God has asked me, if I do this good thing, who's going to get the credit for it? You or me? And I have in my life had to, in fact, I have earlier in my life, I have ignored that voice and it was just all about me. I didn't wait to hear God say who's going to get the credit. I just wanted the credit. I might have said, thank God for the good thing that he has done, but I wanted people to tell me what a great job I did. And as I got older and I've been through some things and got my backside handed to me a couple times, I learned the lesson that I don't really want the credit. God, I want you to have all the credit. It is for our good. I do so enjoy the blessings of God, but you'll hear me say all the time, it is for his glory and for our good. We have to live that way. This is what God was asking Gideon. Who's going to get the glory? You guys are going to get the blessing because you're going to have quite a victory ahead of you, but I don't want anybody to think that you did it, Gideon. This is what God was saying. Gideon, I don't want people to think that you did this. I don't want any of your warriors to think that they did this. I want people to know that I did this. Your army is just too big. So in verse 3, now therefore, God's still talking to Gideon, therefore proclaim in the ears of the people, tell everybody, whoever is fearful and trembling, let him return home and then hurry away from Mount Gilead. And listen to this. 22,000 of the people left. He started with 32,000. 22,000 of his army when he said, if you're scared, if you don't feel like you really want to do this, no shame, no blame. We're not going to talk bad about you. But if you feel like you don't really want to go into battle with the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the ites, you can go back home. It's okay. Nobody's going to look at you funny. You're going to be fine. We love you. God bless you. Head on home. I don't know what he thought was going to happen, but it must have been crazy to see 22,000 of his 32,000 people go, whew, I am out, and to just see them leave. 66% of his army, I'm not good at the math, but about 66% of his army goes, I'm going to go home and see my mom. I'm going to go home and see my wife. I want to see the kids. I'm tired of camping with y'all anyway, and they just leave. And he now has only 10,000 left. Can you imagine it? I try to imagine it. I've never been in a spot anything like that, but to think all right, this is what we need to be victorious. I have done this a lot, actually. I've decided what has to happen. I need this much money. I need this much time. I need this much whatever. Until I have this much, there is no way that I can do what God wants me to do, which is stinking thinking. Until I amass this, I can't possibly do what God has called me to do. I feel convicted about that right now, about something very specific in my life. Thank you, Lord. Can I please finish my sermon? I love you, amen. But that's what we do. We look at, maybe we'll know very well, this is what God wants me to do. Okay, very well. I have to make everything just right to accomplish this. That must have been a part of what Gideon was going through. And then God says, sorry, man, let some people go. Gideon didn't know how many people were going to leave. Maybe he thought, oh, maybe it'll just be 1,000 or 2,000, or maybe just a few hundred will head out. I wonder what the number is. 22,000 people leave. That must have been very shocking. Listen to what happens next. Starting verse 4, and the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many. The people are still too many. Take them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. And anyone of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, shall go with you. And anyone of whom I say to you, this one shall not go with you, shall not go. Gideon watched as 22,000 members of his army bail and go home. He's now got 10,000 facing an army of tens of thousands, like locusts they've been described. They're going to be described like that again here. And God says, your army is still too big. They now outnumber him 8, maybe 10 to 1. An incredible army, an oppositional army. And God says, Gideon, your army is still too big. So here's what I want you to do. Take your army of 10,000 to the water's edge for a drink, as they would have always done. The next time it's time for everybody to go and get water, take them, and then I'm going to tell you what to do next. And so he leads his army, General Gideon, his army that started off that day at 32,000 and now only has 10,000. He leads them down to water, and these 10,000 people have got to be feeling a little bit like, what is happening? Probably pretty brave, because they stuck around. Obviously, they were given permission to run, and these 10,000 guys said, I'm in. I'm fighting. I'm not scared. And when they watched all their friends go home, they're like, well, I'm still staying. I'm still not scared. I trust Gideon, and I trust the Lord. And so Gideon's like, all right, everybody, get a drink. And so he's watching them, and God is having him watch them. And most of them get down on their hands and knees, and they put their faces in the water because it's hot. It's Israel. It's dry. It's hot. They're thirsty. And so they're just happy to finally have some water to drink. And so they do what I think I would probably do, face in the water, drinking deeply. But a few of them dip their hands in the water and pick the water up into their mouth. I think to keep their eyes high, because if your face is down, you don't see what's happening. But these guys are like, they're not attacking me. I'm going to drink out of my hand. And they're keeping their eyes up, ready for battle, paying attention. That's what I'm imagining. And so then God says to Gideon, everybody that's dipping their hand up like this, call them out, set them apart. And so Gideon and some of the guys I imagine working with him are watching, and so they see a guy that's drinking water out of his hand. The Bible actually says, lapping it like a dog out of the palm of his hand, which doesn't really sound complimentary, but it kind of is. So they pull them out, 300 of them. And Gideon must be thinking, man, 300 guys, we're going to lose 300 more? We need these 300 guys. But he gets them all together, and they pull the 300 guys off to the side, and he's like, getting ready for God to say it. And then God says, all right, Gideon, all the guys with their face in the water, send them home. Keep the 300. And Gideon had to be like, that's impossible. I totally misheard you. God, please say that again. You said, send these 300 guys home and fight with the 9,700, which still seems impossible to me, but surely you meant fight with the 9,700, let the 300 go home. And God, I just imagine the conversation. No, keep the 300, send the other 9,700 home. So he does it. He says to that whole rest of the army, almost all of them, 9,700 men, you guys, you can go. Thank you for staying. Thank you for hanging out after the last time. But I know that God wants us to fight with just these 300 guys. Can you imagine being one of the 300? I would have been like, no. I don't understand what's happening, but no. I meant to put my face in the water. I don't know why I did that. I'm out. But there is no indication that any of those 300 left. There is something about a warrior. And I'm talking to a room full. Military warriors, medical warriors, teachers, whatever you do, you find yourself in a battle. We have all found ourselves in battles. Sometimes they're little battles, sometimes they're big, sometimes they're short, sometimes they last for years. You know what it is to have to be a warrior. And there is something about a person that is in the fight or that sees the fight coming that says, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not running. That's what these 300 guys did. That's what Gideon did. It's what I want to do. It's what I want you to do. To look at the things that are going on in your life that are out of your control and say, I don't like it. It's a little scary, but God's with me. And lean back on what it said in Exodus to say, God, I've been obedient. I am clean in your sight. I am forgiven. I'm doing what you want me to do, and I'm not doing what you don't want me to do. I trust you. This is where, Gideon has got both feet in this. You could. To him, it must have felt like quicksand. To me, it would have. Like he can't get out of it. God has called him to this position to be a general over the army of the nation of Israel. The highest ranked person that this nation has ever had is now Gideon. They've never had a king, nothing like that. I guess second to Moses. Moses would have been the highest ranked person ever, and now comes Gideon, the person with the most authority next. Maybe Joshua. I said all that really fast. So he's there with his 300 guys. In verse 7, the Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men who picked the water up to their mouths, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hand, and let everybody else go home, which he did do. So the people took provisions in their hands and their trumpets, and he sent all the rest of Israel, every man to his tent, but he retained the 300, and the camp of Midian was below them in the valley. They were on a high plain. They would have called it a mountain. We wouldn't. If you were to go there, you wouldn't go, this isn't mountainous. But they were on a high plain, and they could look out over the valley where the enemy was, and it's described for us. In fact, let me just read it. In verse 9, that same night the Lord said to him, arise and go down against the camp, for I have given it into your hand. God says, Gideon, I'm with you. You're going to win. But if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah, your servant, I'm sorry, I messed that up. Arise and go down against the camp, for I have given it into your hand. But if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah, your servant. I love that because it gives us a little hint of what's really going on in Gideon. He's scared. I would have been scared. I would imagine that any of us would have been afraid to be in that position. And God lets us know through this record in Judges that Gideon, who had been through so much and who had, remember, he had tested God with the fleece. Will it be dry one morning and wet the next morning? God, do you really want me to do what you're calling me to do? I believe that you can do anything, but can you accomplish it through me? This is that same Gideon. He is now on the cusp of going into a battle with an army of tens of thousands. He's got 300 guys. Is he scared? Of course he is. It's human nature to be afraid. And God sees that in him. He says, I want you to go down. I'm going to give you some encouragement, but I just want you to go down, sneak down to the edge of the enemy and hear what's going on down there. But if you're afraid, take somebody with you. In verse 11, it says, and you're going to hear what they say. And afterward, your hands will be strengthened to go down against the camp. Then he went down with Purah, his servant. That lets us know that Gideon admitted, I'm scared. Because God said, if you're afraid, take Purah with you. And Gideon did. So we know that he was afraid. He went down with Purah, his servant, to the outpost of the armed men who were in the camp, just the outside edge of the camp. They snuck down and they sort of hid in the bushes or whatever was around the edge of the camp. They just sort of hid nearby the edge. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the people of the east lay along the valley like locusts in abundance, and their camels were without number, as the sand is on the seashore in abundance. This is what he now sees. This is what he's up against. Camels that can't be counted, like the sands of the seashore. Men like locusts, scattered, not even scattered, but spread thickly, in fact, through the valley. And he's got his army of 300 men. Woof. Verse 13. When Gideon came, behold, a man was telling a dream to his comrade. And he said, behold, I dreamed a dream. And behold, a cake of barley bread tumbled down into the camp of Midian and came to the tent and struck it so that it fell and turned it upside down so that the tent lay flat. This is the best part. And his comrade answered, "This is no other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp." So frightened Gideon and his friend, his servant Purah, sneak down to the edge of the enemy's camp. And while they are down there, there's two guys right there that are talking so that Gideon can hear them. Of course God has given this guy this dream. Of course he sends Gideon down at exactly the right time when he and Purah can just sneak up to the edge and hear a conversation that of course God has ordained between these two enemy individuals out of this enormous army of thousands. These two guys are talking about a dream that one guy has, and the guy says, "I had a dream about a bran muffin." I'm just going to American it up a little bit. "I had a dream about a bran muffin, and the muffin rolled down the hill, and it destroyed the tent of Midian." And the other guy says, "I know exactly what your dream is about. Have you heard of that guy Gideon? Gideon is in the bushes. Like, they're just right over there." He hears them talking, and the other guy says, "Have you heard about that guy Gideon? He's the bran muffin." Barley cake, but bran muffin is fun. "He is the one that you've had this dream about. This is no one other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash." They even know his dad's name. "A man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp." Man, Gideon must have felt like, what is happening? How do those guys know my name? How is God going to do this thing? But even as he must have had a how in his spirit, there had to be an immediate, deep belief that, this is going to go well. I wasn't really thinking that it would go well, but I'm suddenly feeling like this is going to really go well. Just like God had promised him. Back in verse 11, he said, "Go down. You're going to hear them talking about you." God told him everything that was going to happen. It's so good. You're going to hear them talking about you, and it's going to strengthen you. That's exactly what's happening, because listen, in verse 18, as soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, he worshiped. Right then and there, as he was sort of hunkered down in the bushes, he hears the telling of the dream. He hears the other guy interpret the dream. Both of these guys enemies of his. And he there in that moment, just, I imagine, tears start to just pour down his face as he's on his hands and knees or sitting, however it is that he is there in the bushes. And he just says, "God, you're good. I don't know what it is you're going to do. I don't know how you're going to do it. I only have an army of 300 men, but you are going to do something, and I am encouraged and I am in to be victorious." And he returned to the camp of Israel and he said, "Arise," he told all his huge army now of 300. They would have fit in this room. It would have been tight, but they could all be in here at once. That's bananas. "Arise, for the Lord has given the host of Midian, the entire army of Midian, into your hand." And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies, 3 groups of 100. And he put trumpets into the hands of all of them and empty jars with torches inside the jars. And he said to them, "Look at me and do what I do. Do likewise, do what I do. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do what I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then you blow the trumpets also on every side of all the camp, and then shout for the Lord and for Gideon." He said, "This is our big plan. Here's how we're going to defeat an army of tens of thousands. We are going to divide ourselves up and surround them as best we can with only 300 men, which would have been a very thin surrounding. But we're going to surround them as best we can. I'm going to be in this area. All of you, wherever you spread out around the valley, just keep an eye on the area where you know I am." So he said, "We're going to sneak down. We're going to get all around the edges." He had done it once by himself with Purah, so he knew it was possible to sneak down. He also knew that an army of 300 men spread well out to circle the valley wouldn't make a massive amount of noise. Whoa. That was just like that. He knew that they wouldn't make a massive amount of noise, and so that they could sneak. But even better than that, they had God on their side that was helping them do it. And so he said, "So this is what I want you to do. We're going to spread out around the valley, keep an eye on where you know that I am, and then do what I do. At some point, I'm going to smash the vase that I have. I'm going to hold the torch high in the air, and then we're all going to scream together for the Lord and for Gideon." And so these guys, like, how brave are they? It's this incredible group of 300. They're like, yes, that sounds like a perfect plan. Let us go now destroy an army of tens of thousands of people with a clay pot and a torch, and let's yell. And I'm really not being facetious, like maybe I kind of am, but they were in. They're like, this sounds so good. Verse 19, so Gideon and the 100 men who were with him, he had his one group of 100, and then there were 2 others. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch when they had just set the watch. The watch had just changed. And they blew the trumpets and smashed the jars that were in their hands. Then the 3 companies blew the trumpets and broke the jars. First, Gideon and his 100 smashed the jars, held up their torches. Then the 3 companies all together blew the trumpets and broke their jars. They held in their left hands the torches and in their right hands the trumpets to blow. And they cried out, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. And then every man stood in his place around the camp. I think that is remarkable. Every man stood in his place around the camp, and all the army inside, all the enemy army, began to run. They cried out and fled. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his comrade and against all the army. So this is what happened. Gideon smashes his clay pot, holds his torch in the air. The 99 guys that are with him, or maybe 100 guys that are with him, they do it. Then the other 200 see that happening. They all do it. Clay jars smashed, torches held in the air, and then 300 voices spread out around the entire valley. Yell as loud as they can, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. And chaos ensues inside the enemy camp. Gideon and all his men stand still. They don't move at all. They watch what happens as God turns all the enemies against each other. They begin to fight and run and scream and yell. And they're sword battles are breaking out inside of the enemy so that they are destroying each other while Gideon and his army are just watching it all happen. Mind blown at what is happening in front of them as they're seeing their enemy melt in front of them under its own power. It's destroying itself. And then that army began to run. The army of the enemy fled as far as Bethshita toward Zerera, as far as the border of Abel Meholah and Tabah. And the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali and from Asher and from Manasseh, and they pursued after Midian. After they had finished sort of fighting in and amongst themselves, they started to run outside of the valley, trying to get home or get to somewhere safe, because their minds are totally destroyed. The mind of the enemy has been wrecked and confused, and they're just losing it. And so they take off running. And then in verse 24, it says, Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country. He took guys that were near him and he said, go up to all my cousins. His cousins lived everywhere in all the tribes all around Israel. He said, go tell them the fight is on. Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim saying, come down against the Midianites and capture the waters against them as far as Beth Barah and also to the Jordan. And so they did. Messengers went out and they said, we are winning this battle and we're not even really fighting it. You got to come and see it. We got to chase these people all the way out. God has given them into our hand. So let's just crush them and run them off. And so more people came down from the hill country, from outside of the area where Gideon was from outside of the area where he had been fighting, and they began to pursue their enemies. It says to take back the water because a part of what the enemies did, the Midianites and the Amalekites and all these people, a part of what they did was they would take away the water from the nation that they were invading. So they blocked Israel's access from the Jordan River, which is the life-giving river in Israel, and from all the other fresh water in an effort to weaken the community. And Gideon and all that were leading with him said, let's take back all the water, let's take back our land, let's take back our food, let's take back our people, everything that they've been stealing from us, let's go get back because God is with us. And they chased them in all kinds of directions so that all the men of Ephraim were called out, and they captured the waters in Beth Barah and also the Jordan, and they captured the 2 princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb on the rock of Oreb. It's nice that they named it after him. They killed him on it, and then they're like, this is his rock. Weird. And Zeb, they killed in the winepress of Zeb. They did the same thing again. This is the winepress where Zeb was killed. And then they pursued Midian, and they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon across the Jordan. I know that's gory, but wow, do I love the way in which God looks at my enemies, and he looks at your enemies, and he says, they're my enemies too. They're his enemies. Anything dark that comes against you is coming against God, and so God strikes out against that thing. I don't mean strikes out. I mean strikes out, attacks it. If it's coming against you, it's coming against him, and he does not dig that, and he doesn't back away from it, and he's not afraid of it. And so what we see here in a story that is really this incredible historical narrative of the way in which that God preserved Israel a long time ago is still how he works in your and my life now. Today, right now today, there are things going on around us that if we saw them, we would probably be freaked right out by it. The devil is real, demons are real, darkness is real, obviously sin is real. There is all this sort of chaos around us, but there is Christ around us. And where Satan, demons, darkness require hordes to do what they try to do, God just protects us by his own presence and power. Just right now. He is right now surrounding you, protecting you, defending you, planning things out for you, giving you vision and drive and motivation, and he's completely engaged in every moment of our life, counting the numbers of hairs on our head, keeping that close attention on my life, on your life. Jesus even said a sparrow falls out of the tree and God is mindful of that. How much more mindful must he be of us, his children? We can't imagine it. We actually don't know how much he loves us. We can't really comprehend it. The closest we can get is by seeing Jesus sacrifice for us and going, Jesus, you must love me so much. God, you must love me so much that you would send your son. Jesus, that you would come and be my sacrifice. But we still can't comprehend his love. The unbounded love of God for you, individually for you. It never stops. Of course he's on your side. Of course he is defending us. Of course he knows that there is a time to fight, that there is a time that we have to get into the fight. But if we go into the fight knowing that it is God's strength for his glory and ultimately for our good, then we can anticipate victory. That he'll be glorified and that we'll be blessed because my enemies are his enemies. Because I've been obedient. The way Gideon was obedient, the way I would encourage you to be obedient, do the things you should, don't do the things that you shouldn't. When you screw that up in some way, ask him to forgive you, and he immediately wipes your record clean and he restores you immediately to the position of obedient so that we can then experience his blessing, his provision, best of all, his protection. There is a time to fight. Some of you are in it right now, in some area. It may be sort of a micro fight. It might be a big old macro fight. When something is coming against you or your family or something is you're up against it. Let me encourage you to be like Gideon, to say, God, I'm a little afraid. I don't know how this is going to come out, but I know that you're fighting the fight with me. I know that I've been obedient, and so I have a right that you have given me. I have a right to say, Jesus, will you defend me? Will you destroy my enemies? Will you step into the fight for me? Can I just watch the darkness lose? Can I just watch my enemies fall apart? Can I just watch anything that would come against me, anything that would come against my family, anything that would come against our church? Can I just watch that crumble under the weight of your immense power, your immense authority, your immense grace? Grace for me means devastation for my enemies. Anything that is dark that would try to affect me in my life, I'm happy to say, Jesus, crush it before it gets near me, before it gets near Michelle, before it gets near my kids, before it gets near my family. I pray that every morning. God, if there's anything dark or sinister or dangerous that we might encounter in our day, would you keep us from encountering that, and would you keep that away from us? I, as your kid, have a right to ask, will you please do it? And I know that he does. I know that he does. I pray that for you guys too. For your kids, for your family members that I don't know. But the key is, and sometimes I can feel it. I can pray that prayer and I feel it bounce a little bit because of disobedience. Don't let disobedience put you in a place of danger. Because we can. That's what God has said. Had Gideon been disobedient, this would be a very different story. Very different. But he wouldn't be. He refused to be disobedient. He said, God, I'm yours. I'm going to do what you want. I'm scared. I don't really know if I can do it. Can I really do it? God encouraged him. And Gideon said, all right, let's go. I've got an army of 32,000 men. I can do this. Oh, shoot, I've got an army of 10,000 people. I can do this. Oh, no, I've got an army of 300 people. Can I do this? And then he did. And Jesus, he didn't know Jesus by name yet, but by the power of the Son of God and by the authority of God himself, Gideon saw victory. That's what I want for you. Jesus, that's what I want for all of us. That we would experience victory on the heels of our obedience because of your power at work in and through us. So I bless our church family, our entire church community. I bless them with the sense of the reality of your closeness. And I ask you to bring us all to a place where we stay humble before you, and in so doing, get to enjoy having you fight our battles. Stand in the place that is reserved for us to sling a sword, and you do it instead. What a blessing that we would ever get to know that that's true. And then what a super blessing to know that it's always true. Help us, I pray, to be as Gideon was in these days. Not perfect. He wasn't fearless. There are other things in his life that he did that were foolish, stupid, sinful. But certainly in these days, he followed you. He trusted you. You looked past his fear, dug into his faith, and saw victory. That's what I want for our whole church family, everywhere. Those that are here, those that attend online, for them to feel the energy that comes from you, the power that comes from you, the authority that comes from you, the faith that comes from you, as we see you doing things on our behalf, as we serve you, as we are obedient, as we love you. God, for anybody who's attending the service this morning who has not yet given their heart to you, I pray that this would be the moment. I ask for it every Sunday, and I hope that it happens today. I'm going to believe that it's going to happen today, that right now someone who is not a Christ follower is going to say, I want to be a Christ follower too. I want that protection. I want the provision. I want the care, the love of God real in my life. And so that they would right now say, Jesus, I'm sorry. Please forgive me for what I've done wrong. You come into my heart. You be the Lord of my life. I've done things I shouldn't have done. Please forget that I did those things. Forgive me for them. Starting today, I believe you're the Son of God. You died for my sins so that I don't have to. I get to go and live for you forever in eternity because of your great sacrifice for me. I believe every bit of it, and I'm yours. And I know that if anybody says that prayer in their heart, in their mind, in their mouth, that it becomes true immediately, and they are right then in your family where they will remain and get closer to you as they get to enjoy developing a relationship and getting to know you better. I believe that it's happening right now. And then for we all Christ followers, those who have just joined us and we who have been Christians for some time, I ask that you would carry us forward, just like you did for Gideon. There certainly is a time to fight. We will have those fights in our lives, but I'm thankful that as we are in your hands, the burden of those fights are lessened, in some cases completely removed, because you go ahead and do the fighting for us. That's what I want, that you even fight in advance. You destroy dark things happening around us that we never know about, because we're your kids, you can do it, and you love us. I'm so thankful for that. I pray that we would be reminded of that all this week and in the weeks ahead, for your glory and for our good. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Let's stand together and sing. Water gets turned into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you. None like you. Our God is greater. Sing that. Well, our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. You guys have a great week.